O Flash Camp Brasil é realizado por Adobe e Action Creations. Patrocínio Platinum, BlackBerry Playbook. Patrocínio Prata, Velo Telecom. Patrocínio Bronze, Wacom, Influxes, Chambi, Reacycle, The Click. Apoio, Jornada Adobe, Tango, Alternativa Platform, O'Reilly, Abra Web, Rádio Jovem Pan, Faculdade Maurício de Nassau, Marca Viva TV, linda.com.
E agora a gente vai receber com muito prazer o Elad, ele mora lá em Nova York, e ele vai estar falando pra gente sobre AIR, ele que é escritor e Adobe Community Professional, também palestra em vários eventos, organizador de um grande evento lá em Nova York, que vai acontecer agora em julho. Então é isso, pessoal. Vamos dar as boas-vindas ao Elad.
Thank you, Damien. First, I really want to tell you guys how excited I am to be in Brazil. I always wanted to come to Brazil. I told Damien over at Max, you should do it a month before in Rio, doing the carnival, but I think we would have been too distracted. So thanks for all of you guys to showing up, and let's give Damien an applause for all the effort that he put into this conference. So I just want to, before I'm going to start, I want to do a quick show and tell. How many of you guys are Flash developers? Okay, designers. Okay, so most of the people here are Flash developers. So AIR on TV, it's going to be really good news for most of you guys, because this year, all of you guys, just like it happened with the mobile platform, you're all going to become all of a sudden TV developers just by using the platform. So I think you're going to be excited for that. Now another quick show and tell. How many of you guys been at Adobe Max this year, 2010? So I got James only and Damien. Okay, so everything that I'm going to show you here was, and we got Grant there on the back. So everything that I'm going to show today was really announced during Adobe Max, and it's all going to be very applicable very soon. So I think you guys are going to be very excited. It's a little premature, so the presentation is talking more about the ecosystem, so it's a little bit premature in terms of you guys jumping in and start writing content. But I think that kind of knowing what's up and getting all the links and getting all the presentation, I think you're going to find it very useful. So first I'll start. Damien gave me a little bit of introduction. I don't understand Portuguese, so I'm going to have to repeat some of it. So who am I? I'm a senior Flash engineer and lead independent consultant. I worked in different companies in New York for the past close to 10 years, from startup to enterprise companies, interactive like NBC, Viacom, HBO, Weight Watchers, to small startup. So I was really lucky to experience different types of organization and work with Flex since the beginning, since Flex 1.5, and really see how it really evolved to what it is today. I also wrote 4 books covering the Flash technology. I'm the main organizer for Flash in the City, and actually at the end of this presentation, I'm going to give one of you guys a ticket to Flash in the City. So just pay attention to the presentation, and whoever's going to answer one of the questions first is going to get a free ticket to Flash in the City this year. I'm also an Adobe Community Professional, ACP, and there's some links here. So I actually did what I did for you guys, because I know how it is in conferences. You're coming into a conference, it's too much information, and it's kind of tough to remember everything. It's very difficult. So what I've done, you can actually copy those links. The presentation is available on Google Code. I'm abusing their system just to put all my presentations, so you can download it. And in that Google Code, what we have is 2 things. First of all, we have this PowerPoint presentation, so you can actually review it, and maybe 3 months down the road, when everything is going to be more applicable, you're going to download it and find it useful. At the same time, with the Google Code, what I've done is I package all the stuff that they gave at Adobe Max. So you guys haven't been at Adobe Max, you don't have all that information. So all the stuff, all the SDK, everything that you need to get started is actually already there. And the surprising thing is when I looked for it, I couldn't find it. So you would think it's under NDA, but when since they presented it during Adobe Max, it's not NDA anymore. So you can actually download it, use the files, all the files that that those lucky people that came to Adobe Max, because that presentation sold out. The reason it sold out is that, as you can see here, the device that they gave us, so only the people that came to the presentation got those devices. So I really recommend you guys to keep that link, and later on when it's applicable, you can use it. Also, the slides are already available on SlideShare, so you can keep that link as well. So this is our agenda. So we're gonna go and cover most of the presentation. It's really about the ecosystem, giving you some demos and kind of get you up to speed with everything. So we're gonna go through and do a quick hardware overview. We're gonna talk about the hardware that's supporting Flash, so you get a little bit of an idea what's going on in the ecosystem. Then we're gonna talk about how to optimize some of the Flash content specifically for TV. We'll do a little bit of demo. We'll talk about deployment and monetization. How can you really make some money of building some of those applications, Q&A, and wrap it up and go for lunch. So let's talk about the hardware that's supporting Flash. So when we're talking about deployment, we can split it into two. We're talking about web content, meaning that you have TV sets that you can browse the TV, and then when you go to a Flash site, you can actually view the content. So you would need the 10.1, the Swift. You'll have to deploy to 10.1 in order to enable that. And the other option is really to deploy an application just like you do in mobile development. So you can actually deploy an application through the 2.5 AIR SDK right into the device. And when we talk about device, we're talking about few devices. So we have the Google TV. And it's a little bit funny. Last night I was on the internet. I was doing Google Is, and it's pretty funny because I got Google Is. The auto suggest came up on Google Skynet. Google is Skynet. So it's pretty much, you can see that Google is really taking over everything, including TV. So we see here we have two devices here on the slide. We have the Google on TV, which pretty much stands for the Sony device. So there's a new Sony device, you can buy it right now, that you can actually deploy application. You'll be able to deploy application using the 2.5. And then you have the Logitech review that everyone that went to Adobe Max got that hardware. That hardware, as most people will agree with me, it's more of like a Netflix device. So other than Netflix, it doesn't do much those days, but we'll be able to deploy application using AIR 2.5. And then in terms of other devices, we have all the Samsung. So we have the Samsung that, we'll go to the next slide and we can talk about it. So we're talking about the Samsung Smart TV. The Samsung Smart TV, it's basically, it's Adobe launch partner. So that's basically the major partner with Adobe in terms of AIR 2.5. Adobe during Max talked about that it's going to be available in 2011. And which is all that line that Samsung did for Smart TV. Now we're in 2011, what's going on, right? So what's going on is that 3 days ago, there was a press release, I think it was in Dubai, and Samsung finally announced that Smart TV line, and it's gonna be available very soon. So very soon, we're all gonna be able to develop those applications. Already, right now, there's a lot of companies that are developing content and checking the possibility of what to do with it, if it's Netflix, if it's HBO Go. It's all premature, but everyone is testing it. So when that's going to come out this year, we're all going to be able to kind of play around with it. Sony Google TV, it's already has the Flash Player 10.1 deployed, meaning you can go to a website and view Flash content. And the Logitech review, which is also for the Google TV, it's already available. The 10.1 is already available. So we're going to talk about optimizing Flash content for TV, and we break it down to a few things. First of all, the AIR 2.5 SDK, it includes the complete full APIs of the SDK, meaning that just like development for desktop, mobile, etc., you can actually access all those APIs. You have access to Stage Video API. You have access to flash access DRM, hardware acceleration 2D, keyboard API codes, and then we're going to cover quickly a few tips, and I'll give you some links on how to better optimize your content specifically for TV. So one of the biggest thing on TV, and basically every TV that was ever built was really designed to do two things, which is playing high definition content and displaying UI. So those are the two main things of every television. And the keyword behind all of this is SoCS, which is system on chips. So the system on chips allows us to basically display high definition video, 1080, Blu-ray high definition, as well as doing UI. And using AIR, there's already with test, we're able to achieve 200 frames per second. So you'll see in the demo here, you'll see even games that simple games and simple stuff like that, it can actually render it. So even though it wasn't really designed for that, almost every TV set that has that can actually handle the AIR on TV. So the main thing of TV again is really displaying video, and at 2.5 it actually includes that stage video, and the stage video in compared to the flash video object is actually you can only initialize one of them, and then there is a big difference between the flash video object and the stage video object. So the stage video object using the GPU, meaning that our TV sets really can handle something that is high process with CPU because they don't have process that can handle that, but they have a good GPU. So everything using the stage video, you can already see it on the web. There are a lot of companies moving to the stage video, and deploying on TV actually becomes more significant because all of a sudden you can actually increase the frame rate, and you can get really great results using the stage video. So that's one of the first thing. However, you need to take a few things into account. For example, in flash video object, you can do stuff like rotation of video, you can apply color transform or 3D transformation. You can apply alpha channel, blend mode, filter. How many of you guys develop video player? So we have a few. Only the Influxus people are raising their hands. Other than that, you can do stuff like copy video data into bitmap data object. You can do stuff like copy video data into embedded SWF file. You can use all the color spaces. So you can see that you actually can't do that with stage video, so don't even try. So all those things are actually not available when you develop for TV. So you do get like high performance, but it's not exactly equivalent to the web. So you got to take all those things into account, and when you use the stage video, you're going to have to, you can really use all those things. So there's, when we're talking about stage video API, there's we're talking about basically delivery of content. So there's few things we can talk about in terms of the stage video. We have stuff like we can deploy using that new method that Adobe came up with. I think it was like a year and a half ago, HTTP dynamic streaming. Actually, it was 2 years ago. So you can do HTTP dynamic streaming. You can do stuff like progressive download with HTTP protocol. You can do RTMP and RTMP-E, which is real-time messaging protocol, and the E stands for the SSL. So you can do RTMP or RTMP-E. You can do stuff like RTMFP, which stands for real-time media flow protocol, and you can use it either as a peer-to-peer or as a multicast. So those are those new options. There's a big difference between the RTMP and RTMFP, which is the RTMP was developed back in the days by Macromedia, and it's actually they opened the technology up, so it's open source, and you can actually browse into it and know what's going on there. The RTMFP, it's right now proprietary for Adobe. But however, it basically allows you to overcome all those issues that you have with RTMP, because RTMP doesn't go over the HTTP protocol. So RTMFP actually goes through the HTTP protocol, and it allows you to kind of overcome all kind of security issues. If we're talking about the stage video, take a look at the code. So for those of you that touched video at all, and video is like huge with the Flash player, you can see it's almost the same as developing video player. You have the net connection, and you just create a new net connection. You create a net stream that includes the net connection. Then you just create a new video and you attach it. And then, as you can see here, I'm creating a new video that it's a stage video, and it just attached the net stream right here. So it's very, very similar. You can see how simple it is and how familiar it is, just as using the Flash video object. So it's very easy to use. You know, in New York, we see almost every company are moving to that, and it really helps Adobe with the penetration with the 10.5 Flash player, because everyone is just moving to the stage video, because you can see the performance gain. So let's talk about some encoding guideline. So you're going to be using H264, which is really high quality, 1080p. It's the same quality as Blu-ray. Talking about, you can see you can reach the 1080p, 1080i, and obviously 720p and 720i. We tried to connect the TV earlier today, and we couldn't get it working because we had an older TV that was displaying 480p. So we had to go and bring this TV and just to get it working. So it looked like those older device. I'm not sure how well they're going to work. The device that we're using right now, it's a proof of concept that Adobe worked with Broadcom. But in the future, I'm not sure how many of those older TVs are really going to work well with that, especially with that low resolution. And we're talking about a frame rate of 24 or 30 frames per second. The audio codecs that are supported are AAC, LC, AC3, 44.1 kilohertz. Thank you. And combined bitrate up to 2 megabytes per second or higher. Audio bitrate up to 192 kilobyte. All those specs are important once you start getting into deployment of video. Pixel aspect. And then it actually also includes the Flash Access to DRM. The Flash Access to DRM, it includes, you can either use it using FMS, RTMPE, and Swift verification. You can use one of Adobe partners to use that, and it's end-to-end monetization system that allows content delivery companies to monetize on the content. So if you're trying to deliver content and you want to monetize on it, so the user will pay for that content, they have 3 ways of doing that. And you can use 3 ways. For example, you can use that, it's called EST, which is a sell-through. So you just sell the content through one by one. You can do video on demand, it's called VOD, VOD, or rental subscription and pay-per-view. So PPV, VOD, EST. So all of that stuff you can do right out of the box with the Flash Access DRM. So that's huge, because again, most of the content and most of the stuff that you're going to do with deployment is going to be related to TV and delivery of content on the TV. The other part is what we spoke about is really, other than delivery content, is the 2D acceleration, and it basically take into account the SOCS, which is the system on chips, and it basically enable us to do the video playing as well as building all the UI. And we kind of spoke about it, and again, using the AIR system, just with those initial tests, we're able to reach 200 frames per second on the TV. That's really impressive, considering this is not that doesn't have a great CPU. So reaching 200 frames per second, it's pretty neat. Meaning that, I mean, I'm not sure how well it's going to work if you're going to try and deploy some enterprise application, but simple small games and simple UIs, it really works well. Now let's talk about some of the specific APIs. Some of the specific API, we have the remote control, and the remote control Just like when we build for the web or desktop, you're just adding an event listener for keyboard event, and you can just put like a little script like I have here that you can just track the character code. And on this specific device, and especially when Adobe is going to come up with it, maybe not everything is going to work. So you're going to have to test the remote control to kind of make sure that everything works, because you may press some of the button and not get a response or get an event. So that's something that it's recommended is, when you start working with it, to kind of go through it and check it. Let's say you want to go back to the menu, you want to click all the different keys. That's something that you want to check. Now, when we talk about tip to optimize Flash content for TV, it's very similar to deployment of application on mobile devices. So you need to take all that stuff into account. For example, caching content. So we're talking about cache as bitmap and cache as bitmap matrix. What does cache as bitmap means? That means that instead of the Flash player going and rendering every single time that something happened on the screen, you can actually cache it. But it's a double-edged sword, because what happened is it really takes the vector graphics and it renders it as a bitmap, and then it keeps that representation in memory. So when you make any changes, for example, you move the X and Y of an image or a vector graphic, then it doesn't need to redraw it. It uses that copy from the memory, and it allows you to basically to cache it, and it runs faster. The reason that it's a double-edged sword is that what happened is, let's say you are changing the width and height. Then all of a sudden your vector is different, and then it needs to re-render it. And because it keeps two copies, you still have your vector graphic, and you have that bitmap representation, which is the image. You have both of them living in memory. When you're making a lot of changes, what happened is it's actually slowing down your machine and degrading the experience. So it really hits all those bystanders, and so all those innocent bystanders are getting affected by what's going on here. So the solution is to do stuff like manual caching. So instead of going and redrawing everything, the bitmap, when you're making small changes, you can actually rasterize your image and use the same bitmap to basically avoid redrawing. So what I'm going to show you, and if any of you guys are interested in it, I don't know how many of you have seen, there was about a week ago a press release by Adobe that they showed a game deployed on all those different devices. It's called Combat Charlie, something like that. So it was a game that a good friend of mine, Charlie Woven, built, and Adobe did a press release for that. I don't know how many of you guys saw that press release. It's a cool video, but he actually used one of my API to manually cache bitmap. And when you're going to develop on TV, that's something that is very useful. However, I'm not sure how many of you guys have really understand fully bitmap data, caching, manual caching. That stuff gets really complex. So I have a little API that I built, and you can write down the link. It's on GitHub. So if any of you are interested, you can write down the link, and it includes all kind of tools that allows you to optimize your content from changing the frame rate to manual bitmap caching. So feel free to keep that link, and when you develop for mobile or even for desktop, you're going to find it really useful. The other stuff is we really need to make sure that the CPU is not going to be overused, because just like in mobile device, when the CPU is overused, it's going to drain the battery. Also, the bitmap is going to drain the battery every time it re-renders and keep the display object. The same thing with the CPU. If you have overusage of CPU on mobile devices, it's going to drain your battery. On the TV, it's hooked up to the TV is hooked up to the to a socket, so it's not a problem that it's going to drain the battery. However, what you can have is, because it doesn't have a strong CPU, it can really choke. So you really need to make sure that the CPU runs at 500 to 800 megahertz. So when you develop your application, obviously you're not going to develop it on TV. You're going to develop it, and then let's say every iteration or every twice a day. You're going to go and deploy it on the TV to see how it works, or maybe you're not even going to be lucky enough to test it. Maybe you're going to try and develop it before the technology is available, so you just need to make sure that the CPU doesn't run on more than 500 to 800. The other thing is you really need to avoid animation of large vector content. And if you do that, again, make sure that it's being sent to the GPU, make sure that the bitmap is caching is optimized and all that stuff. And then it's really recommended to use simple button, up, down, left, right, and remote keys. Because, again, it's a TV and people are going to use the remote controls, so you don't want to make it too complicated. You know, kind of, and all of us have all those devices like PlayStation, and sometimes it's a real pain when the keyboard comes up and you're trying to kind of type something up. So you want to really keep it simple, the UI. And then in terms of the icons, so as you can see on the TV right now, you can create icons. And those icons, you need to make sure that they're 24-bit PNG with transparency according to the specs. So Adobe has a white paper, and if you download that document that I put on Google Code, it has all the specification, how to create those icons. So you need to make sure that you follow those specifications to make sure that that the icon is going to look correct. So how can you really deploy the content into the on TV? So first of all, you need to download the ZXP file. So here's the link. If you're lazy and you don't want to do it, again, the Google Code has, I'm almost positive that it has the ZXP included in that, but if not, that's where you can actually download it. And if you guys using Flash Professional, I'm sure you installed those ZXP files before. So it's the same process, you just install them. And then you need to install the AIR for TV device connector application on your development computer. So to do that, again, you need that connector that I have it included in, again, in that Google Code. And once you install that, that actually talks to the driver. And then the last thing you need to do is really you need to take a Swift and export your application and send your AIR file. And that's about it. And then you can actually track the IP address and see it all working and debug it, etc. So let's take a quick demo. So as you can see here, it kind of opened up. We have a few applications that what we're looking at right now, this is a Broadcom device that Adobe worked with their partners to create this device just for us developers, so we can actually try and start creating content. So again, it's very premature. So we have stuff like the app marketplace, so we can actually go here and see all the applications that are available. If it's going to work. Of course, it's failing. Great, it's not working. Okay, I'm gonna try and restart it. It always have to happen in a presentation, right? Yeah, no, I just restarted it. Let's see if it's gonna work. I think it just doesn't want to work today. It's like waiting. Having so much issues with it today. Okay, so we have here a few applications that were developed. This is an application that was developed by Adobe, one of their partner, RCDB, and it allows you to basically see movie reviews using their UI menu. So look like that's broken too. Okay, I don't think it's gonna work. Okay, so we're gonna go back, we'll try something else. I think we have all those issues because it's 480p. It should be 720p. So I think that's why I'm gonna try and restart it again. Yeah, if it's not gonna work now, what I'm gonna do, I have a little video, so we'll just play the video to show it. But the TV has to be 720p, otherwise, you can see it get the handshake, but it's a little buggy. This device, it's not. Again, it's just for developers, so it's a little bit unpredictable. Okay, let's hope it's going to work. So I'm going to try and show you this. This game was developed by a good friend of mine, Jesse Freeman. And he built that Frogger. Yeah, I think it's going to break. Yeah, all right. It's not going to happen today. Yeah, unfortunately, it's not going to happen today. What I can do is I have a little video that was that I can play for you guys. So I think that's the most we can do today, fortunately. So this is a demo that they displayed at Adobe Max. Let's see if that's going to work. Okay, so we're going to have to skip the presentation today. Sorry about that. If you guys are interested, we're going to try and get it working later today. So we're going to try and switch it to 720p. And maybe we'll show it in the other room later today. So anyway, so what I wanted to show you is some of the games that got developed, some of the UI. So you can develop stuff like you can build UIs that, and then you can actually go and watch trailers of movies or actually subscription movies. You can develop really simple games that are not complex, and use the remote control to kind of control them. So all those stuff is really proof of concept right now. So there's nothing really that significant that was built so far. So there's a lot of opportunity for developers to start creating your own content. And example of aggregators. So we have all those over-the-top aggregators. So we have two. So we have the Android apps for Google TV that it's going to come in 2011, and we have the Samsung App Stores. So right now we already have, if you go to those aggregators, you're already going to see that all those content providers are creating content right now. If it's HBO Go, New York Times, Pandora, all those companies are creating it and are playing with it. And you can actually, in terms of the Android, you'll be able to go to the Android App Store and buy those apps just like you do for your Android device. With the Samsung, they have an app store as well, the Samsung. So you'll be able to go to the app store of Samsungs and buy those apps right from there. So the next question is, if you want to deploy your own applications, what's your options? and how much does it cost, right? It's going to be our next question. So in terms of Samsung, it's free, so it's not going to cost you anything to deploy those applications. And if your applications are free, meaning if your applications are not requesting any payment, then it's not going to cost you anything to deploy those applications. If you're building commercial profit-based application, it's you're going to have to create an account with Samsung, and then the profit is not a set profit. It's going to be based on number of applications that are sold. So when I signed up to that, I was going through the entire contract, trying to find out their payment structure. It was really complicated to find out their payment structure. So it looks like they're going to charge you, depends on how many you're selling. It's kind of complicated to tell you exactly how much they're going to charge you. In terms of Google Marketplace, it's the same as deploying mobile application. If your applications are free, it's not going to cost you anything to deploy. If you're deploying commercial application, Google take a chunk of 30% of whatever you make, just like they do with the mobile development. At the same time, you have another options to deploy applications. So Adobe are working right now on a product called in-market deployment, and what it does, it's an SDK that allows you to kind of push your content automatically into those aggregator without going through the headache of deploying it one by one. So right now we're talking about only 2 aggregators, which is Google and Samsung, but let's say in the future you'll have, let's say, 20 different aggregators, so you don't want to go through each one of them. It's already a pain for a developer with the mobile development to deploy into iOS and Android, etc. It's just becoming really difficult. And in-market the intention is really to solve it. So the way it works, Adobe in-market takes 30%. It takes the same chunk as Google Android, so they'll take 30%. No matter what the aggregator are charging. So you're just paying Adobe 30%. So you may have, like, let's say 10 aggregators, so that's the model right now. And then it's going to deploy directly to Samsung, Google Marketplace, or any new aggregator they're going to come by. So I encourage you guys to just check it online and see, and check that product and follow those guys. And I have a link at the end of the slide so you can actually check it out. So here's, before we're going to go to QA, here's some links. Here's my blog. Here's the link to the Flash professional extension for AIR 2.5. Here's an article on DevNet that kind of talks about deploying and creating application for Flash platform on TV. Here's the Samsung App Store. So you can actually go there, create an account. And here's some information about how to develop for the Samsung platform. Here is a link for the Google TV for developers, so you can actually see all the content provider, who's working on what. You can actually, as well, create an account and look at the content. Adobe in-market, that product is really in the beginning phase, but hopefully Adobe is that's actually a really good take on Adobe to really try to do that, and I really hope they're going to do something similar for mobile, because I think that's what a lot of us are experiencing right now, is really trouble and a lot of effort to deploy applications. So I think that's something that's going to be really helpful. This is the presentation from Adobe Max that kind of talks about the ecosystem from 2010. And this is an article on how to develop and optimize AIR content for TV, as well as delivery of content of video for TV. So again, delivering of video, it's like a significant part of it. And then I want to talk about Flash in the City. So that's the conference that I'm having in New York. It's going to be in June 9th till 12. And I encourage you guys to come to New York and be part of this conference. So for all of you guys that paid attention, I'm going to give one ticket. So I'll ask one question. Let me see if I can find something. The first one that's going to tell me what RTMFP stands for is going to get a free ticket to Flash in the City. Raise your hand. First one. RTMFP. What does it stand for? In Grant, don't raise your hand. You can Google it.
Real-time media flow protocol.
That's correct. Give me your business card, I'll send you a ticket. Okay, so if anyone have any questions? Yes.
Is there any work on touch-enabled TVs? Touch.
Touch, yeah, there's a lot of work that was done, but not in relation to those products that I'm talking about. It's not the AIR on TV that Google and Samsung are working on.
Você falou sobre o stage vídeo.
What's the question again? Thank God James left me this. Okay, go ahead.
Você falou sobre o stage vídeo. E o stage 3D? Dá para utilizar em TVs? Stage 3D.
Yeah, you can use it, but it's not going to be that useful because it's going to use much more CPU. So I'm not sure if it's something that I would recommend of you using. So again, it's something that definitely I would try and play with it, but it's probably not recommended to use any 3D graphic at all because the TV set was really never built to display 3D content. So it was built for 2D content. So I would recommend to stay with 2D at this point.
Ok. Eu queria fazer uma pergunta porque você comentou a respeito de algumas questões que podem ser utilizadas para o desenvolvimento de TV e seria diferenciado para uma questão no micro, por exemplo, né? Então, a minha questão seria, existe a possibilidade de nós, desenvolvedores, também adquirir o setup box ou alguma coisa para que a gente possa fazer os testes desses aplicativos que a gente desenvolve na própria TV ou alguma coisa parecida?
Right now? Yeah. Okay, so unfortunately, right after Adobe Max, actually at the time of Adobe Max, they had a link so you can actually sign up for the pre-release for AIR on TV, and Adobe shut that down. So what I would recommend you to do is really to get in touch with Adita. He's the project manager for AIR on TV, and request him one of those set box. So if you're working on a product and you can convince them that it's worth for them to give you a set box, then you can get a set box. And there are a few people that asked me when I was at Adobe to talk to Adita and get some of those devices. What I would recommend you is get in touch with Adita and send them some kind of proposal or something you work on. And if they're going to find it really something that it's worth worth a while for them, I'm pretty sure they're going to send you a setup box. If not, as I said before, 3 days ago, Samsung kind of announced that they're gonna have that whole line, so it's going to be available pretty soon. So you can always kind of start building it now, and hopefully in a few months you'll be able to test it and deploy on TV. Yeah.
Have you ever heard about the Brazilian model of the digital television, the Ginga or Gainga for you? And my question is, if there is any kind of possibility to show up on the screen the video who comes from the terrestrial transmission, the normal transmission, or to read some EPG from this transmission, I don't know. There is a possibility.
You're talking about video, deployment of video?
Yes, it's like the traditional transmission of video, open stream video. Because as there are some TVs who comes with a middleware called Jinga, and this middleware they get the video via streaming, the terrestrial streaming, and if there is a possibility to show up inside in a Air TV application.
Those TV, I mean, that market is right now as fragmented as mobile devices. There's so many devices and there's so many options of deploying, Swift content on TVs on different devices. So it's specific to that device. So it's coming. Many of those devices are they're working directly with Adobe, and a lot of those devices are really independent and they have their own SDK. So you're gonna have to check it on that specific platform, but it's getting pretty fragmented. So it's almost like what happened at the mobile world, it's now happening on TV. It's just very fragmented.
And there's a kind of possibility to connection between applications in the same, who it runs in the same time on TV?
Yes. Actually, there is a way. There's a video and a source code by Ranan. You can see it here. So there's a Ranan actually created, and he has it on GitHub. So he actually created an app for using this platform that it actually talks to different devices through the socket. So just like all those applications that we've seen where you have the Android device or the iPhone device becomes the controller, you can create something very similar for TV. So you can actually create an Air app and you have the entire source code. So you can actually download it right now and see how he built it in GitHub. So if you go and look for Ranan, it's called Pickwick. You can actually download the source code, and the same as it's been done before on desktop and mobile, through the socket connection, you can create a connection and have different devices talk to each other. So that's probably your best bet. Is that what you mean, or something different?
Something like that.
Yeah. So
I think this is good for me.
Okay. So just put like Pickwick, GitHub, those two keywords, and you can download the source code, and you can actually also watch this video. So in this video is basically the TV is talking to a tablet, it's talking to an Android, it's talking to iOS, everything through a socket connection, which is pretty neat.
But two applications in the same device, like in the TV.
It's basically the same application that running on different devices.
Different devices. Different devices, not the same.
Yeah, it's not the same device. Okay. You're talking about two TVs talking to each other? Yeah, you can do the same thing. So it doesn't matter if it's two TV or a TV and an Android. You can just create a socket network and just have those two TV talk to each other. Okay. So meaning that you're talking about, let's say you have 3 TV sets in your house, and you want one TV to talk to another. For example, you walk into a room, there's a video playing, and then you walk into another room, then the TV set starts from where you can see the usage for it. You can put a little sensor. As soon as you enter the room, it starts playing. You go to the kitchen, it gets the cue and plays from the same point. So you can build applications like that, and using the socket connection, they'll just talk to each other and transfer that data.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hello. I have a question about the API. You mentioned the remote control. You can add an event listener for keyboard key down event. Are we going to have a specific API for the TVs, or I don't know? For example, different remote controls are going to have different keys. So how is the API going to address that?
It's actually, there's nothing specific on the TV set. So what you're gonna have, I don't know if you ever use that, but when you use the keyboard, there's actually some kind of enum class that you can actually that it already include. Let's say the enter and the shift. I think it includes the enter. It includes some of them. So there's an enum. I don't know if Adobe are going to add an enome class, but I'm sure that one of the developers out there is just going to create an enome class that's going to include all those different shortcuts. So it's just a little utility class. So Adobe usually, as we see every time, they just build the higher level APIs, and then we have all the developers that are just adding those utilities and implementations on top of that. So from what it seems right now on the pre-release, and from what's going on up until now, I haven't seen any specific for that. I haven't seen any talk about building specific APIs. It is becoming challenging because, as I said before, when you try the remote control and you hit some of the keys, it just doesn't dispatch an event, and I can just see it being an issue in the future. However, we're really talking about, when we talk about AIR on TV, you're really talking about only 3 devices. It's the Samsung, all that line. You're talking about the Logitech, and you're talking about the Sony Google TV. So that's about it. So it's not as fragmented as mobile device that you may have like 1 million devices. Even there's already fragmentation within Android. So it becomes an issue. So I don't think it's going to become an issue. I think that's the neat thing about it. The only thing that you are going to have an issue is I think that you really need to realize that you're working with a device, even though it's a large TV, it's less capable than a mobile device. So when you start building to it, you need to take into account that you're not going to be able to build right now any enterprise level application. You really need to build simple stuff, like simple games, simple some kind of video content UI, some kind of photo, something really simple. You can't really go and try to build something complex. And I think that's why I think that in the beginning phase, Flash Professional, maybe even enough of that. In that presentation that Ranwan put together, he built it using Flex. But I don't see anyone building something too complex, especially in the beginning. Down the road, I can see the consumer demanding more of the TV and the manufacturer putting other hardware that it's stronger than the SOCS. Any more questions? One more.
Eu de novo, né? A minha pergunta agora dessa vez é o seguinte, o que o colega falou ali atrás a respeito da TV aqui no Brasil, do padrão, que a gente adotou o Ginga, ele trata também a questão da transmissão, né? Ou seja, o aplicativo ele encaminha junto com a tela, a TV, enfim, a programação que está passando. Há possibilidade de fazer isso também com esse desenvolvimento do Flash, enfim, a gente atrelar. Evidentemente que no Brasil ainda não existe essa condição, porque a gente programa em Java TV e isso é encaminhado junto com a programação. Mas existe em algum país, ou existe, vamos dizer assim, a possibilidade disso via ocorrer com o Flash também, a transmissão do próprio aplicativo?
Yes, so from what I understand, you have this system that all the content work through it, and you want to include that content in your UI. So you want to build some kind of application that use that content. That's something that I'm not really sure how well it's going to work. You're going to have to check with Adobe. This is so premature, and this presentation, its ecosystem, all this stuff is really so early in the game, that once it's going to become available. And I'm sure that Adobe are going to have to work specifically on those APIs and those things. So or some developer is going to have to kind of come up with some kind of way of integrating maybe the Java API with the Flash one, which you can already do that. So let's say if you have it working in Java, you can use stuff like Merapi. Do you ever hear of that Merapi framework that Adam Flater built? It's called Merapi. So you can actually your Flash can actually talk to Java. So if you can get it working in Java, I'm sure that there is a way to kind of get it working, but it's going to be up for the developer. So that's something that's specific to Brazil, and I can see a lot of values of people using it and building that. So I really can't answer that right now, but I can tell you that if it's possible in Java, then you should be able to integrate it into the AIR app. Any more questions? One more.
You said that a device can talk with each other, right?
Right.
So can I create some kind of network, like a game where my friend plays with a TV and I am with other TV, the same game, but we can do this interactive with programming TV, from the programming. So I can make a show where I can make a game where every telespectators can play with this game?
That's a good question. I had that question to Chuck Friedman. I don't know if you know him. He's with Lil. So those guys Lil created a device for TV, and that was one of my idea to him was, why can't you guys integrate it with TV content? And the answer is that it goes into all those lawyers' contracts, and the content provider, if it's all those network, they really can't do that. That's why you don't see it on TV. So the technology is there, but there's a lot of politics and there's a lot of lawyer stuff that they have to kind of work it out to get it working. So my bet that it's not going to happen anytime soon. And even if you can't develop it, so let's say you did develop that software, you're going to have issues probably with the content provider. So it's a great idea, and I'm sure that we would love to see that. I mean, how we see it on website, right? We have all those MTV programs, and you see it on NBC, that you can actually go online and rate stuff online as it's happening, right? And do stuff like that. But I don't think we'll see it anytime soon on TV. I think it's gonna be a challenge to kind of, they're gonna have to work it out. That's really the reason why we haven't seen it so far. So it's an awesome idea, it's a great idea, but I don't know, it's like unless someone is gonna hack into the device and force it into it, so I'm not sure if we'll see that working or not.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else? Okay guys, so have a great lunch, and thank you for being here.
Obrigado, Elad.